Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and this is my 60th Saturday vlog. And I'm telling you, it's been a rough week, and I'm recording this on Wednesday, and I'll explain why here shortly, because I normally record them on Thursdays, but it has been a long-ass week. Like, it's been gray, it's been dreary, today it rained. And it's winter, so like I would expect snow, but it rained. And tomorrow it's supposed to get colder, so it's supposed to turn into some kind of crap. So that's fun, and it's been a quiet week at work, so we're all like, do we have to be here? Even the business owner is less than enthusiastic, although he's only 5 weeks out of retirement now. So, you know, we've started going through and cleaning out. So that kind of makes things interesting. But we still have to maintain the business right up until the last day. So, it's an interesting process. It's a very interesting process. And sometimes you learn something interesting, and other times you get frustrated. But what else is there to expect? Oh, and for those of you who are watching that, are watching for Entropy Universe, the reason I don't have the daily is it's been one of those weeks, and today's been one of those days, okay? So, I attempted to do Sunday's video earlier tonight. I made 3 attempts, and all 3 failed. And so I'm going to post those videos, I think, on my Patreon for my patron to watch. If you're interested in seeing them, please consider becoming a patron. Go to patreon.com/JulianMcBain. And if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please make sure you take a moment and subscribe down below. We're on the road to 13 million subscribers, 1 subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. So yeah, it's been one of those weeks, and you know what? It's just one of those things you gotta work through it, you gotta power through. You know, no one said life would be fun in games all the time. Good things that have come up, though. I have started live streaming Subnautica. Parts 1 and both parts of Part 2, because we had a stream crash somewhere in there, are available for rewatch. Right here on YouTube, because I stream on YouTube. And then I think that my normal schedule is going to be Tuesdays and Fridays. This Friday I will not be streaming, because this Friday I have to travel to Connecticut. And I'm traveling to Connecticut because there's an event. And this is going to be one of the rare events I go to, although this year I'm going to several events that are not fighting events. I'm going this time to network with some folks because it's a big event, especially for one where there is no fighting. It's an arts and sciences event, so people are going to be displaying projects of things that they do that replicate things that were normally done pre-1600s. So you've got dressmakers and blacksmiths, and I don't think there's going to be any bards there because the Bardic Challenge was last weekend. But, you know, dressmakers and blacksmiths and cooks and brewers and dancers and weavers. Trying to think of spinners. We even have people, I think, that do as close to period farming as they can legally do. I mean, it's... Oh, potter. We have a potter. And so it's just... In fact, we have a potter in my local chapter, which we call a shire. And so all of these folks are going to be there. It's a great networking opportunity because most of these folks do other things too. And so being able to see more of what they do, be able to meet with them and talk with them, it's a good opportunity to do so. Because most of the time when I meet people, it's because I'm stabbing them. Right? I'm a fencer. I spend most of my events on the field or near the field. And it's, hi, I'm Julian. Pleased to meet you. Let's fight. And when you're done, you laugh and you shake hands, or occasionally you hug and you laugh again. If they're your friends, which you know, you become friends on the field, and, you know, you get done and you're laughing and you hug and you go off the field and it's great. But this is an opportunity for me to see what they do off the field, because most of my event is on the field. That's what I do, right? That's why I go to events. I also go to do things like camp, because we have a lot of camping events. That's the other main thing that I like doing. So I'll spend my spare time at camp and I'll do things like cook or just kind of relax, because, you know, I'm sure you all know. Sorry, I got a ladybug on my Tartarus. In a really inadvantageous spot. But as you all know, I am on the grind. Like, I hardcore produce content all the time. Or almost all the time. I make sure that I have enough for 7 days a week unless I fall ill. Like, I missed 2 days this year. I was sicker than a dog. I actually called out from work. And so, well, let me tell you, that never happens. It was my first sick day in 2 years. And so, yeah, I use that opportunity to rest. This time, I'm going to try volunteering to do a couple of other things, and we're going to find out where those opportunities might be. Might not be a lot of them, there might not be any. It might just be an opportunity for me to meet folks and look at some nice, pretty things. Which, you know what? I'm not going to bitch for once. Sometimes you just need those weekends. But yeah, that's this weekend. Next weekend, we have another event, and it's a more local event. So Vermont is split down the middle, and we have two chapters. We call them shires. We have Panther Vale on one side, which is my shire, and we have Mountain Freehold, which is on the other side, which is, well, honestly, if I throw a rock hard enough from where I live, I could probably hit the border of Mountain Freehold, so I spend a lot of time with both of them. And we interact and mingle and trade off. Well, they have an event in their area. The following, not this coming Saturday that you're watching this, but next week on Saturday, which shouldn't affect my Friday schedule at all because it's like an hour from me. Not a big deal. And I'll be spending most of that event in the kitchen, helping with the spread for what we call day board, which is it's basically almost like a buffet, but it's not for a meal. It's snacky stuff. So there'll be like lunch meats and stuff like that, but it's not going to be where people are making sandwiches or anything like that. They'll bring a plate over. It'll be kind of like a light lunchy thing, or they'll come over during the day and pick up on the snacks and stuff like that. So that's exciting too. In the SCA, we have royalty. That's, we recreate the Middle Ages, so you can't really do that without royalty. And so we've got royalty at both events, and so we get to see court, and that's going to be fun. Court's always fun. And it always depends on who the royals are at the time. Because some royals, we do what we call shtick. And I'm sure you can all guess what shtick is. And if you can't guess what shtick is, then get off my lawn. But we do shtick. And depending on the royal, depends on the flavor of shtick that we're expecting. And so, like, the queen is going to be on doing court at this weekend's event, today's event for those watching this on the day that it releases. But it's the princes that will be holding court at the following event. And so I'm excited to see what kind of shtick to get out of them. Because I've never interacted with them. Actually, I haven't interacted with any royals from here. Beyond the normal hello. But because I used to know when I lived out in the Midwest in what we called the Kingdom of North Shield, it's a smaller kingdom. I knew like everybody because you do it for 7 years. You meet like most of the people that you're interacting with, and so I knew a lot of folks. And it didn't mean we were close, but like if I saw the person, I could say yes, that's Vlad. Or, yes, that's Morgan. And most of the time, they could look at me and say, yes, that's Julian. Or at least, that's Martin's student. Because that's the name of my fencing, the person who taught me how to really fence. He was the one who taught me how to be a black tiger. Which, for those of you who watch my McBain moments, that big patch that I hang like a flag behind my head, that's the black tiger's emblem. So yeah, but my mentee, my black tiger mentee, or one of my two black tiger mentees, Cords, is running the kitchen, so I will be helping her in the kitchen to make the spread work. She is what we like to call cheerfully the feastocrat, even though that's not an official term. She's in charge of the food. So yeah, that's the next 2 weeks. It's going to be a busy time, but it's going to be a good time. Today's event, for those watching the day this comes out, today's event comes out, or is in New Haven, Connecticut, which is 4 hours from me. And so Friday, that would be yesterday for those... Sorry, I'm having a hard time with time today, can you tell? So yesterday, I will have driven down to New Haven. Today, I'm at the event. Tomorrow, I'll be driving back. It's a damn good thing I have audiobooks. Probably listen to like the 10X Rule or something by Grant Cardone. Kind of hype me up. If you ever want a book to give you energy, got two of the best books to give you energy is the 10X Rule and Be Obsessed or Be Average. You know, like him or hate him, Grant Cardone is awesome at just pumping people up. Just like, go for it. Good stuff. You know, and I don't necessarily agree with everything he says. I agree with a lot of it, but not everything. Honestly, if you agree with 100% of what an individual says, in all likelihood, you're either the same, you know, family, you've known each other forever, or there's a solid chance you're either a sycophant or in an echo chamber. Is what it comes down to. And that goes for any type of ideology whatsoever. Financial, not ideology, but category of your life, whether it's finances or your moral beliefs or what have you, doesn't matter. You know, very rarely should you agree 100% with a person on everything. Even if it's by gradient. Even if it's by a gradient. You know, you believe in being a cautious spender, but you're a little less cautious than, say, your spouse. You're more likely to get the extra candy bar. Or you are more likely to order dessert. Or you are more likely to buy that trinket on the shelf on a whim. Or less. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But it's not going to be exact. It's not going to be exact. And if you think it's exact, you're lying to yourself. Because everything's by gradient. So yeah, I don't necessarily agree with everything the man says. But he says a lot of good stuff. It's a modern adaptation of... It's a modern adaptation of a part of the philosophy of Andrew Carnegie. Actually, it's a good chunk of the philosophy, but there's other stuff in there. In Carnegie's formula, Grant Cardone takes a chunk of it and like breaks it down to details, like the actual nitty-gritty. But it's not the whole Carnegie formula that has made... It has made people filthy rich. Just got to do it right. Do I do it right? Probably not. I haven't figured out all the parts of the formula. And you know what? That's okay. It's called learning. Okay, next, Shoggoth. So yeah, this weekend, big networking event. I'm gonna locate one of the better fencers here that I guess we could call it, it's a field friendship, right? We don't know each other enough for me really to consider her a friend, but I respect her opinion, I respect her skill, and so I'm going to chat with her about a few things regarding the field, because like I've hit a plateau. Hang on, guys. Damn it. I think I got him. Sorry about that. There is nothing I hate more than houseflies. Like, not a damn thing. And so, you know, I eradicate them. So yeah. Lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, I've hit a plateau on my fighting, and that's really concerning to me. Because, and part of the way I'm attempting to overcome the plateau is by teaching. And I had hoped that after 6 months to a year of teaching, again, because it's been a while since I've taught, I would have figured out what was causing the plateau and overcome it. But really, it's only become more pronounced, and that's concerning to me, because in my opinion, we should always be moving forward. And we're going to hit plateaus, and we're going to, you know, come up against things that we can't figure out. But that's the point where you need to find someone that can help you. And so, my goal for today, while I'm in Connecticut and you're watching this, is to discuss with this senior fencer. We actually call them ogres, because the order that they are in is called the Order of the Golden Rapier, OGR, Ogre. And so I'm going to be talking to this ogre and try to find out if she could recommend someone who might be, or introduce me to someone who might be willing to look at possibly mentoring me for a little bit. And so and the answer might be no. I mean, I don't know enough ogres. That's the long and the short of it. I should know more, and I don't. But sometimes you can't get to events, and that's life. And to meet people, you got to get to events, and that's life too. More importantly, fencers tend to judge a lot of a person's character by how they act on the field, and that's actually a really good measure of character. A person who has poor comportment on the field is not going to have good comportment elsewhere. A person who has a lousy attitude in mundane life is going to have shit comportment. So really, action on the field is a really good judge of character. It's one of the reasons that I do mentoring through martial arts. That's why I mentor people through martial arts. That's why I use the Black Tiger's Cord system as a mentoring tool just as much as a training tool or a training experience. You can tell a lot about a person's character when you're facing them on the field, or when you're watching them fight an inferior fighter or a superior fighter, or even an equal. I mean, you can tell a lot of them just by watching them fight, but there's different things you look for in each of those scenarios. There. I poorly said what I was trying to say. Shit. You know, because when you're watching them fight against the newer fighter, let's say they've got, I don't know, 5 years experience, and they're fighting up against someone who has less than a year, right? the person who has less than a year is still going to be getting their feet out underneath them. Because realistically, it takes a year to be confident enough with a sword to where you're not nervous all the time about hitting people or being hit. And we've got really good calibration. You know, we train fairly precise strikes so that we don't jack each other. And in this kingdom, it's actually lighter than when I was used to. I actually had to reacclimate myself because here, the absolute lightest touch is all you need. In North Shield, it's what we call positive pressure, which is about 1.5 pounds of force. And that 1.5 pounds of force, if the blades were... on a naked blade that's sharp, on a person with no armor, represents 3 inches of blade into a person's flesh. 1.5 pounds of force. And actually, I've got a really funny story about that. I worked for a bank, as I know most of you know it, when I lived in North Dakota. And we were doing, it was a luncheon. And we had the bank president there. Not the CEO, but we had regional presidents and things like that. So we had the bank president there, the regional president there. And we're going around introducing ourselves, and it was introduction and something you take with yourself to a picnic. No one could double up, and beer wasn't allowed to be on the table. He said all of his bankers would say beer. So we get to me, and I say my name. I don't even remember what food I chose because I'm not a picnic person. And the president, whose name is John, he goes, so Julian has a very interesting hobby, and I'd like you to talk about it for a few minutes because it's very unique. And I told everyone there, and it was about half of the city's staff was sitting there. So you've got about 30 people from all of the different lines of business. And there was 2 branches in the bank in the area. So, I mean, some people had come down from the north side of the city. And I told them about, I do fencing, and I told them how it's, in a box, and how it differs from Olympic fencing, and how we don't use the lights to determine who struck. And so one of them said, how do you know it's a good strike? I said, well, a good strike is 1.5 pounds of force, and we train to 1.5 pounds of force. And she goes, well, why is that? And I kind of bit my tongue for a second. I looked at the bank president, and he knew what I was going to say. Like, he knew. Because I look at him, and I'm like, do you really want me to say? And he nods, and I'm like, okay. I said, because 1.5 pounds of force is 3 inches of steel in your flesh. And that's all you need to kill someone. You put 3 inches between the 3rd and 4th rib. That hits the heart. That's all you need. On the average person who would be fighting. This poor woman. The look on her face was just horrified. And I felt bad. Because I realized that this was not something that she was used to. And she was not from North Dakotans are very much, in tune with the cycle of life and death. You have to be. Over half the population are farmers, and we're talking cattle farmers, so they get the harvest, right? The very weather. Am I going to be allowed to shoot this guy, or am I just going to walk toward him? The very weather, especially during the winter, is just fundamentally incompatible with human life. I mean, you can be out in it, but you got to be careful or it will kill you, and it doesn't care. Especially the further west you go, because part of North Dakota is in the Badlands, and Bismarck, where I lived at the time, was kind of on the border. So it was plains still, but you go just a few miles out of town, and the plains start to peter off and turn into dust. Because that's what the Badlands are. It's pretty much a desert, except the desert's made of concrete, and it snows. And it gets to like 45 below zero during the winter. And so I've seen days in that area. It was in Montana where I saw the most extremes, but even in Bismarck, it'd be 100 degrees during the summer and 45 below during the winter. 0 Fahrenheit. So for those of you who operate in Celsius, think between 39 and 40 degrees above and 40 degrees below zero during the winter, because 40 degrees below zero is where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet. And so, I mean, people who are native to North Dakota, that's just a fact of life, right? They're very pragmatic when it comes to things of that nature. She was not from North Dakota. And so I felt really bad, and it was just one of those things. But that's kind of an anecdote that I run into, and I find it amusing now. At the time, I honestly felt nervous I was going to get in trouble. But it had been approved by the guy in charge of everything, so I was like, ugh. What do you do about that? So, tangents. Getting back to the matter at hand, I'm going to be looking for a mentor for myself this coming spring. And so by talking to this ogre, I am hoping to... and ogre is not a pejorative. They proudly wear that title. By talking to this ogre, I'm really hoping that I can at least start the process of finding someone who would be willing to mentor me again. I miss my old mentor. I wish we could still work together. Living 2,500 miles apart makes that impossible. You don't have to like it. I don't like it. He doesn't like it. And frankly, when I finished the training to get my black scarf, I had to wait for a testing opportunity, which would take almost another 2 years, or actually a year and a half. When I finished my training cycle with him, and I asked him to formally recognize me as a cadet, he actually suggested I not, because it would make finding a mentor later more difficult. But the reason I wanted to do that was because of the relationship we had, and I didn't want to give it up. And at the time, I had no expectation. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I wasn't sure how the awards worked out here. So I was like, you know what? I know there's a level that I'm probably going to hit a ceiling, if for no other reason than because of time, at least for several years. And so I told him, you know, this isn't about me climbing the internal social ladder of fencers. This is about a relationship that we have had for the last 2 years. And he was like, okay, I'll officially make you a cadet, knowing that I can't really provide you a whole lot of support. And that was really cool. You know, I learned a lot from Don Martin. Don being a title. It's Spanish. It's Spanish. If you ever watched like Zorro, Don Diego de la Vega, it's akin to a knighthood, but it's not. I don't know the rules around using the title Don in Spain. It's higher than Mr., but it wouldn't necessarily be Sir. So yeah. And so that's my plan. I'm going to network, I'm going to chat, meet a few folks. I also want to get into court voice heralding. So I'm a herald, and what that means is in the Middle Ages, they didn't have PA systems, so people had to have really good voices. I'm good at the voice part. I'm even pretty decent at the creating coats of arms part, which is actually called heraldry, which is the primary purpose of a herald. But I've never done real court heraldry where you're announcing people's awards, and so I wanted to try that out. And so I'm going to be talking with another person while I'm there about trying that out and where and when that might be able to happen. So lots of good stuff. It's a good opportunity for me to do things that I wouldn't be able to do at a fighting event because I'd be too busy, fighting. Really looking forward to seeing what happens. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Guys, as always, I really appreciate all your support. You all have a wonderful day.